I'm Action.
And I'm Set. And this is our Illinois Railway Museum memories. So this week, seeing how we have the Frisco 1630 Director's Cut video coming up, what better way than to kick off this week with another memories video of the Illinois Railway Museum. The Illinois Railway Museum has been on my list actually for quite some time for a few reasons. One, the Frisco 1630. While the 1630 was not in any videos I remember as a kid, it wasn't one. The only reason I know that the Frisco 1630 was in one of these videos I watched as a kid was because a few years ago I pulled out Lots and Lots of Trains, I think was the name of the special. It was sold in 1999. There was part 1 and part 2. Part 1 had the Nebraska Zephyr on the cover. Part 2 had the Challenger on the cover, which as a kid I know I used to mistake as a big boy. When I rewatched this video a few years ago, I saw that there was a cab ride aboard the Frisco 1630 in the program, and there was some footage of the 1630 on the program, as well as there was even some footage of the 1225 and 765 in the program, which I do remember, and there was 587. I remember the 765 and the 587 because they had flying number boards, and when I was a kid I hated flying number boards, which I think I have made very, very clear on this channel. There was another video I had as a kid that I do want to bring up while I'm talking about the 1630 called On the Tracks. It was a Hobart and Cosmos special. And the reason I'm bringing that up here is because when I first saw videos of the Frisco 1630, I thought it was the locomotive on the cover of that video. And I just remember sitting there going, oh hey, that was on the cover of that one video I had as a kid. And then when I pulled it out right before going to see the 1630, I saw it was the Grand Canyon Railway 18 on the front cover of there. And while I have not watched that video in many years, I am pretty sure the 18 was actually in that video as well, adding another boost of nostalgia for the Grand Canyon Railway 18. The 1630 looked pretty cool, so I did actually want to go and see it. And I also wanted to go to the Illinois Railway Museum because the fact that it is the largest railway museum in the United States. And once you go there, you definitely see that it does live up to that title. I mean, holy cow, the collection that museum has is just...
It is absolutely massive.
And I just want to point out, I have been there 3 times and I still have yet to see everything. It is that huge. It's also a term
and a lot of outdoor static displays, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct. And as a buddy of mine said, it is the world's largest model railroad. Because yes, it does operate like a model railroad, which there's nothing against that. It is pretty cool. So as stated in the Strasburg Memories video, this actually was our first pick in 2016 when Action, myself, and Go and Roll were all talking about our road trips for the year. This was actually our first choice as a railroad museum because of the collection of it. And trying to find an operating schedule for the 1630 pretty much canceled that out because the 1630 only operated on the weekend and the only time we'd be able to go was on a Thursday. So with the Illinois Railway Museum being pretty much kicked to the curb in 2016, that didn't stop us from wanting to go there in 2017 for our Chicago trip. And it was actually our 3rd stop that day, not including pit stops. It's about an hour outside of downtown Chicago.
It's kind of in the middle of nowhere, but...
It is in the middle of nowhere, which makes it even better.
Yeah.
And literally, I think the closest city is Crystal Lake. Something like that. It is literally...
and even so, Crystal Lake is still a bit of a ways away, if I'm not mistaken.
And when you go out there, I mean, it's just great being in the middle of nowhere. The amount of collection, though, what they have, not just steam locomotive, diesel locomotive, electric locomotive, trolley car, passenger cars, caboose, it's really just amazing. And they've got a deadline outside of old steam locomotives. And something I'd like to point out, the Lake Superior-Ishpeming 34 was actually at the Illinois Railway Museum before it was purchased by Western Maryland, which would eventually become the Western Maryland 734. And the Norfolk and Western 475 was here for a bit, but it was never, I guess, technically owned by the museum. I'm not sure how that worked. It was supposed to be restored somewhere out in the Midwest before going back east to Strasburg. But anyhow.
And just some of the locomotives they have there are just really, really impressive. I think, what's the articulated one they have there?
The Norfolk and Western 2050, the number actually escapes me right now. 2882, it is the only surviving USRA copy of a 2882 in the United States.
That was pretty cool to see. Plus, another thing that stuck out to me was the Hudson they have there.
The Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy route 3007. It is the first and so far actually only Hudson we've seen as a channel. They also have the Milwaukee Road 265, which is sister to the 261, which we're hoping to see this year. And another locomotive of interest, they have the Santa Fe. Don't remember the number of it, but it is the largest locomotive they have there in the museum's collection, and it is sister to the 2926, which is almost near the end of its restoration, which is another locomotive on my bucket list to possibly see this year or next. It is the largest non-articulated locomotive operational when it is completed. Not the Illinois Railway Museum one, the one down in New Mexico, 2926. They had the Nebraska Zephyr, which was actually used in the movie A League of Their Own. And I believe it is the only operational Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy route Zephyr operational. But let's be honest, the star of the Illinois Railway Museum, mainly because it is operational, is the Frisco 1630. And as I'm sure you saw in our 2017 video, we didn't exactly get a fair chase with the 1630 because of a few situations led to us leaving early, personal reasons back home.
And you know what they say, stuff happens.
So, with the bummer conclusion of the 2017 Chicago trip, I already knew I was going to go back out there and see it. And initially, I had plans to go back out and see it the last weekend in August once again something came up. And that pushed me to going to see 425 for the first time, which I'm glad I did get to see the 425. Fast forward 2018, I knew I was going to go back out to the Illinois Railway Museum, and I decided to go back out Labor Day weekend when I knew the Frisco 1630 was operating at night for some cool night shots. At first, I wasn't sure what was going to happen because I saw it was supposed to be nothing but raining, thunderstorms, torrential rain, and I didn't know if that would cancel the operations, which thank God for a steam locomotive, they were still planning on operating it. It was just the electric locomotives they couldn't operate in a thunderstorm.
Makes sense.
So going there, I was going to try and spend a little more time with the static displays, but as you saw in the video, the 1630 obviously took over. I did get more video of the static displays outside, including the Southern Pacific engine there. They have an 080 Grand Trunk Western engine, which actually steamed into 1980, I believe, at a plant nearby in Illinois. The C&O Kanawha 2707, but I was glad to finally have a fair chance at the chase. There isn't much of a chase out there. There's only 2 crossings it goes across and a few spots in the museum, but the 1630 was pretty cool to finally see. Lighting was great that day once the sun finally did decide to come out, except during the sunset. The 1630 it only ran a half hour later. It would have been in the peak time for a sunset and a silhouette shot. So I'm glad the Frisco whistle was on it that weekend because it's a steamboat whistle and it sounded great. While it will never be the 1522, 1630 was great, and I was glad I was able to finally do the chase justice from riding, chasing, and all that other fun stuff. So in 2019, can you expect us to go back to the Illinois Railway Museum? There is no immediate plans. I'd like to go back out there for mail days where they do mail demonstrations. But other than that, probably not. Because I pretty much did what I wanted to do with the 1630. I think I only missed 1 crossing. And if there is one thing I'd like to also point out too is that we will return someday to the Illinois Railway Museum, but it won't be this year. However, though, you can rest assured though that 1630 is on that list to see again someday, and I'd definitely like to go back and spend a lot more time looking at the static display. Anyhow,
I'm action.
I'm set.